Our guest in this segment is the Finance Chairman of the Senate, Jason Barrett. Senator, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning, Jason.
Who's going to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Hell if I know. I think they'd take anything they can get at this point, but I'm not a fan of bringing in Aaron Rodgers, who's only a year younger than I am, to play quarterback. So don't think that's a great idea.
Is he still in the mix, Jason? I've not heard it recently.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of teams that are interested in Aaron Rodgers, and I hope one of those other teams land him. So
it is amazing how united Steeler fans are on not wanting Aaron Rodgers. Yes. And I agree. I'm a Steeler fan. I'd ride with Mason Rudolph this year.
Yeah, they have two great wide receivers on the outside that all you got to do is get the ball anywhere near them and they'll catch it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we have anybody to get the ball near them. So.
Yeah. Rodgers' athletic skills have obviously waned in the last few years, but he's never been a team player. He's always caused disruption in every locker room he's been in.
And yet people want to throw money at him.
Yeah. And we save that role for our wide receivers.
and most NFL teams. Yeah, I don't know why wide receivers are the psychos on every team, but that seems to be the role that they want to play. I don't know. All right, Jason, let's talk because we're in the second half of this legislative session. We're past the midway point. When is crossover day, sir?
You always ask me that, and I never know. Day 45, 47. I always get them confused. I don't know why, but so we probably have about 10, 12, whatever. I don't know what. Today is the 36th day, so within about 10 days or so.
All right, so explain the significance of crossover day.
Well, that's the day that the bills have to be out of their house of origin, with exception of bills that spend money. So supplementals can be run after that, but general law bills have to be out of their house of origin by that day. So that's and everybody. I don't say everybody, but there's all kind of a misunderstanding is why there's been some talk in some other media outlets that the legislature's only passed X number of bills and it's a slow session. Well, they're not completely passed until they pass both chambers, and because of crossover day, the Senate wants to run Senate bills until that day, and the House wants to run House bills until that day. Now we've passed each other's bills a little bit here and there, but because we have a deadline of when these bills need to be out of the House of origin, after crossover day, then we start really to pass the other chambers' bills.
I want to ask you about, and I've not prepped you for this one in any way, but I'm going to be doing a segment with Greg Thomas in the near future about medical monitoring legislation in the Senate. Obviously, I don't know what the House's status is with that too, but in that he named 12 senators who are unfriendly toward West Virginia citizens against lawsuit abuse. I don't know that he used the word unfriendly. I'm just going by the list. Can you tell me about medical monitoring legislation that you're aware of in the Senate?
And that's a bill that was on the Judiciary Committee agenda the other day, of course, which I'm not a member of. Mm-hmm. And there was a motion to table that bill, and they didn't consider it. And if you want to know anything about medical monitoring, I think you should watch the movie Dark Waters.
I have.
And the poison that was put in water, and these ailments that show up years later. And so I'm not an expert on it. I'll tell you my preference is to not pass that piece of legislation. So,
and that legislation would make it more difficult to do medical monitoring?
Yes. Yeah. And so it's not friendly to the victims of instances like poisoning of water as it was portrayed in Dark Waters.
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm missing something here. It may well be me. You say watching Dark Waters, which it needed more medical monitoring, and yet you said you're against this particular bill. Am I missing?
He's against scaling back medical monitoring.
Oh, okay.
The bill would eliminate or drastically scale back medical monitoring.
Okay.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
No. It may have well been me, but thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. I mean that ongoing kind of observation of a victim's symptoms or health. Is what really medical monitoring is, and in situations like that, I think that's important to victims.
I want to ask you about homestead exemptions. And when I look on your page, it says SJR 14. I've not seen. I see SB. I see HB. What is SJR?
Senate Joint Resolution, which because it's a constitutional amendment, you'll either see HJR or SJR. And so those are resolutions that would become constitutional amendments that have to pass both houses.
Okay, so this is homestead exemption, which in Berkeley, Jefferson County, high cost of living counties, I think would be very important. Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean it's important in a lot of counties. I mean, we talk about the home cost in both Berkeley and Jefferson, and they're the two highest in the state. Jefferson being number one, Berkeley being number two. But you look at some other counties, Mon County and others, that Putnam, and some of them aren't that far behind, and so it is important. And what the constitutional amendment does, because the homestead exemption is set at $20,000 in the Constitution, so my Senate Joint Resolution, which would become a constitutional amendment, increases that to a floor of $25,000, but then removes or gives the authority to the legislature in the future to increase the homestead exemption, so that in future legislatures we would not have to have a constitutional amendment every time we wanted to increase the constitutional amendment. It would simply be done by general law that would be passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. Now, so the reason to keep it in there at all is to set that floor, because I think there would be, some apprehension from voters to say, well, yeah, if we take it out of the Constitution, then the legislature could come in and lower it or raise it, and we might not want to give the legislature that power to lower it. So what this does is it sets a floor at 25. Now, currently it's at 20,000, and that's it. It can't go up or down without a constitutional amendment. So this would set the floor at 25 and allow future legislatures to raise it from there. I also have a bill introduced that I would, if we can get movement on this constitutional amendment, that I would, get movement on a bill that increases the homestead exemption to $40,000 with $5,000 a year increments. So once the constitutional amendment if it were to pass, this bill would then go into effect where we would raise the homestead exemption by $5,000 until it reaches $40,000.
And this would be for every county in the state, not just for the high cost of living.
That's
counties.
right. It ultimately, is that the best way to do it? Probably not. The best way to do it is probably some formula of the percentage of the value of the assessed value of the home. What we have to be mindful of is that when we do that's costing counties a lot of revenue. And so I think doing this incrementally is the way, number one, to get the votes for it here in the legislature, to help our seniors who are on fixed income, and the tax bill is a burden they have to deal with, and also not put the counties in a bad spot where they're losing a significant revenue to cause them some budgetary issues. And the homestead exemption, there is a cost to the state. Everybody thinks, this is just county revenue. Well, it is, but when the county collects less money from property tax, then their local share goes down with the school aid formula, which means that then the state has to pay more. And if we took from 20 to 40 in 1 year, that would probably cost the state in the neighborhood of $12 to $13 million. So phasing in it, we've been talking about this issue for as long as I've been here, and there's been no movement on it. And I think this is a way to do it that is it as quick as I'd like it? No, but it puts us on a path to get it to where so many people have talked about getting it to that 40,000 in the past 10 years that I've been here.
Well, I think this is a very important bill. We have too many seniors being forced out of their homes because they can't pay their property taxes, because you're in an area where property has appreciated significantly. Maybe you bought it 25, 30 years ago. Well, your taxes are probably doubled or tripled from when you bought it 25 or 30 years ago. And maybe you can't afford it as you retire, because if you're on a pension, that's pretty much fixed. And you got that in Social Security maybe if you're old enough, and you're going to make those property tax payments. It can be a difficult chunk to swallow. So these kind of bills are very important to seniors in our area. That's a commentary. That's not a question, by the way.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Jason,
There's a question I'd have ended with, higher voice, higher pitched voice at the end, inflection.
Yeah. Senator Eric Tarr has introduced a bill that I think may have another name, but in effect it's locality pay, something that you've been pushing for quite a while. Does that have a chance of getting through the Senate?
Well, it passed the Senate Education Committee yesterday, I believe unanimously on a voice vote. It now comes to the Finance Committee. There was a fiscal note put on it yesterday of, I think, $192 million. So I think that, we're going to have to look into that fiscal note a little bit, make sure that number is accurate, see if there is a way in which we can scale that number down. That is a huge lift. Given this budget year, any budget year at $192 million, to be quite honest. Does it have a chance? Absolutely, and we're going to be working on that, over the next week or so to see if, again, the accuracy of the fiscal note, and then see if there are some things that we can do to tweak that so that it, brings that number down. I've co-sponsored the bill. I've read it, but I do have some questions about, is that for all employees, or is that just classroom teachers? And so those are the things that I think that we'll get some answers to, and we'll see, what we can do, to bring that number down where it could be affordable and we could get the votes and be able to put it in the budget.
Now, fiscal note applies only to the money that's coming out, being paid for by the state. Is that correct? Or does it also include the counties?
There are times when a fiscal note will show county revenue up or down, but we primarily use them for the state. So I haven't. I know that fiscal note came out very late before that committee yesterday. I know the numbers in the $190 million range. I have not read, to be fair, I have not read that fiscal note yet, and that's what we're going to do over the next few days, is to really get to the bottom of it and again check its accuracy, and we'll get all the details on it.
Jason, this and I'm parroting what I've been hearing you say over the years, is very, very important, locality pay, and all of us in the Eastern Panhandle feel this way. Are there other demands made this year for our state budget that's unusual and that would preempt something like the locality pay? I'm sure the answer is yes. I'm just kind of fishing for what some of these are.
Sure. I mean, a couple of the big expenditures that we're not or haven't been used to is the expansion of the Hope Scholarship. That's $110 million. PEIA, I think, was supposed to be in the 60-some million, but it's actually, I think, at 45 or 47 million. So those are a couple of the larger drivers and why the budget is a little tighter this year.
Okay. Yeah, Hope Scholarship 110. We threw out a number earlier today that was much higher than that.
Well, that's for 2 years down the road.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. You're right.
If you look at those fiscal notes moving on, and a lot of times these fiscal notes really, they kind of forecast the worst case scenario from a monetary standpoint. So, I think they're using a lot of assumptions that the vast majority of an overwhelming majority of homeschool students will utilize the Hope Scholarship. But having conversations with folks in the homeschool community, a lot of them aren't interested in the Hope Scholarship because, there are strings attached with that, and they're not interested in those. And so, some of that is speculation as to how many homeschool students would utilize, or homeschool families would utilize, the Hope Scholarship.
Jason, let's talk about a couple of other things, including SB 37, allowing teachers to exchange unused leave for monetary compensation. What's the current scenario with that, and what are you hoping to make it become? Well,
and those are teachers that are in the teachers' retirement system on or after July 1 of 2015, July 1, 2015, where they get 10 days a year, and it's a kind of a use it or lose it scenario. And what this bill does, actually allows that teacher, the classroom teacher, to essentially sell back any unused days for 80% of the cost of what a sub would be for that day. So it's aimed at a few things. It's aimed at trying to put more money in the teacher's pocket. It's aimed at keeping the teacher, the permanent teacher, keeping them in the classroom during those 10 days as much as possible. It will save the county money because instead of paying 100% of the sub, they're going to pay 80%, and they're just going to pay it to the full-time teacher. So I think it's great policy to do that. I think it's a winner all around, and I think it's on third reading today in the Senate, and I expect it to pass unanimously.
I don't know who came up with use or lose vacation hours, and I'm not talking specifically about how it's addressed with teachers in the state. I'm talking about the general principle of them. But it's a great way to make sure your best people aren't at work.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. And, whether the teachers or whoever, they're employees. And when you, give someone time off, you don't let them carry it over, or it has no value if they don't use it. They're clearly going to use it. And I think it's silly to assume that teachers or anyone else would just take no value for it. And a lot of, especially younger people now value their time off more so than I think, older generations did. But I think this is a way to give them some monetary compensation for those days if they don't use it. And I think it's great policy. I think putting this in from the beginning, and those folks that are in TERS, the Teachers Retirement System, after 2015, I think it was really stupid on the legislature's part to at that time, to not allow some value to those unused days.
I think vacation time is like a swimming pool in your community. You're probably not going to use it as often as you want, but if it isn't there, you sure aren't going to be happy about it, right?
Right.
That to get taken away. Question about Medicaid. I did not know this, but apparently life insurance cash value works against you in a Medicaid calculation?
Yeah, so in West Virginia, we have a bill to deal with this, Senate Bill 6. In West Virginia, when you are, someone is going to go into a nursing home setting, where they value all of your assets and your bank accounts and everything you have, one of the things they look at is the cash value of a life insurance policy. And a lot of these are like the $2,000 and under range. And what is required is that cash value, that policy be cashed out for the cash value, and that money be part of the equation and used, towards the nursing home setting. And then what happens when that person eventually passes away, then they have no money left, and this policy is gone. And if the family doesn't have money to pay for the funeral services, guess who pays for it? The state of West Virginia. So this just removes that small life insurance policy with a small cash value. Again, this is the cash value of it, not necessarily the payout value of it, but the cash value allows them to keep that policy so that when they do pass away, that policy is still in place for their funeral and burial services.
All right.
Jason, everything
Common sense.
Yeah, everything circles around dollars these days. Going back to SB 37 for the transfer and the leave, is there a fiscal note attached to that?
There is, and it doesn't make any sense. It says it costs money, which it does not, because we're not going to put any additional money in the budget for it, and it's only to the counties. And for this, I think with Senate Bill 37, this allowing teachers to do this is not about the dollars first and foremost. This is about a tool to help recruit and retain teachers, and this is a tool to make sure that the permanent teacher is in that classroom teaching students as much as possible, and not have the student lose their permanent teacher in the classroom setting more than absolutely necessary. That's the primary reason for it. And then we look at the monetary side of it secondly, and make sure that this isn't going to cost a lot of money. And it doesn't cost money. It will actually save counties money because, again, instead of paying that 100% rate to the sub, they're going to pay the 80% to the teacher, because that classroom teacher, they're 10 days off. They're still getting paid. So now we're going to eliminate the cost of the 100% of the sub that day, and we're going to give the permanent teacher will be in that classroom that day, and they'll get paid 80% of what the sub would have been paid.
You're actually saving 20%.
Yes.
So this is actually the opposite of a fiscal note. This is actually putting money back into the Treasury.
And we get fiscal notes of things that save money, and we get fiscal notes of things that cost money.
Oh,
so
this is the same.
again, but the dollars and cents of this bill is very secondary.
Jason, thank you. We are out of time. Thank you for yours.
Thanks, Jason. Very
Always a pleasure.
informative.
Yeah.
Very informative.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
Take
you
care.
carving out some time. He's the finance chair, so we know that he is very, very busy.